Welcome, Vinny. Thanks so much for coming. I'm so looking forward to this panel, and such a pleasure and an honour to have you here. I know that you contribute so much to the community, so I really appreciate it. So I was wondering if you could tell me what drew you or led you into this area with this focus of digital payments, and what's your main passion in that area?
I think I stumbled into it somehow. I've always been fascinated with the whole digitization of physical objects into digital assets. So from music to everything, everything really. You know, when I came across the gift card space, it was interesting because gift cards with these, you carry 12 of these in your bag, and well, why can't these be digitized? They're just numbers with codes. So I started looking into that space. I built a company called Gift, and then we tried to solve some payment issues, which we used Bitcoin for, and went very well. And then afterwards, I decided to go back into your wallet, and now I'm trying to get your driver's license and your passport on your wallet as well with Civic, my new company.
Okay.
And so it's more like the digitization of physical objects, which don't need to be physical.
And that's your main fascination with the area?
I think that's what I've really gotten the past 6, 7 years of my life focusing on. Like how do we get friction out of our lives? How do we make things easier, safer, more secure?
In other words, really maximising the use of technology, really, right? Correct? And what do you see from your perspective is the future of where we're heading with all of this? And what would you like to see? What's your vision?
Yeah, I'd like to see a world where there's more automation actually, because I think one of the things we have right now is there's lots of corruption at government levels worldwide, and it's largely because deals are done between people and paper contracts. So if you move to a world where everything is digitized and smart contracts are available, these things become a lot more transparent and easier to enforce, and people are forced to be a bit more above board. So, like a pet peeve of mine is corruption, because I'm born in South Africa, raised there, and I think everyone can agree the corruption levels are through the roof. So I'd love to see corruption end at some point in my life with things like digitization of just something as simple as contracts and enforcement of these contracts and voting processes, etc. So that's kind of where I'm focusing my career on now, is how do we digitize everything from contracts to passports, IDs, driver's licenses. How do you just digitize the world?
And in a way, it sort of makes it safer because, it just means we can trust that more, correct? If it doesn't get hacked.
The idea is that it should become trustless, that we don't need to trust anyone. We just trust that the code executes as the same way you put it on your computer or you turn on your phone. It just works.
And obviously, the major challenge in that area would be fraud, correct? And I know the blockchain obviously makes things more transparent, but what are the risks of fraud with that?
I think the risks of fraud go down the more digitized things are, because they become auditable, traceable, and it's not, what blockchain does is gives us this auditability record. So it's a chain of transactions that can never be erased or modified, versus static computers and servers today where you can go and delete records and trails, and you can't do that with Bitcoin.
Fantastic. Well, that's reassuring. And I was wondering, just on the more human side, if there's been any funny, interesting stories that you've had happen as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I've had a couple. One that comes to mind is we hired a guy to build websites for us, and he was doing some slightly nefarious website activity on the side, and we had this brown envelope come to the office, totally anonymous, the one day with images, photographs, and stuff, and we were like, okay, this is a very interesting situation. So we dealt with it as best we could, but that was an interesting story.
I guess he left that day, right?
Very shortly thereafter.
Yeah, it's got to keep it G-rated, definitely. Thank you so much, Vinny. I'm so looking forward to your contribution to the panel.
Thank you. Great. Thanks for having me.